All right, so I had to talk about this most recent season of Love is Blind. If you're watching this right now and you weren't familiar with this about me, I'm like one of the biggest fans of reality TV. I know people say it's like brain rot or it's for low IQ people. I don't agree at all. I love reality TV. I've loved reality TV since I was like in high school. I've been personally invited to be on a few different reality TV shows, so I'm a huge fan of reality TV. Now, one of the most recent shows that we've been watching is Love is Blind, me and my wife. And I have a lot of opinions about the most recent season. I have a lot of opinions when it comes to like relationships and dating and all that stuff. I like to give my 2 cents about those topics. So I kind of wanted to share those in this video. I want to give an overview of the entire season and then give my 2 cents on the couples and just my hot takes, maybe my cold takes. I guess we'll find out. So, and I had to kind of just look up all the couples just to make sure I have all their names and stuff. So this is not scripted. It's going to be all over the place. Bear with me. It is what it is. So first of all, this whole season of Love is Blind, I want to say this about the show in general. I know it's made for entertainment purposes. I know it's made for money. Duh. As far as an experiment, I think people take the experiment too seriously. I think people watching the show take it too seriously. I see people complain about the way that the show is laid out and structured. I think to me, it's pretty obvious when you watch these reality TV shows, their goal is not to fulfill the experiment. Their goal is to simply make a premise that's appealing on paper and will lead to you watching so that way they can make money. That's really what it comes down to. I say this because the whole idea of is love blind? Of course not. We know this. I know this. You know this. Everyone watching should know this. Love is not blind. There obviously needs to be some attraction to the person you are trying to date in order for you to love them, at least for a long period of time, and especially when it comes to marrying them. Obviously, I'm not saying everyone needs to be a 10 out of 10, but what I am saying is that there needs to be some baseline of attractiveness for people to get married. In general. Now, with that being said, I love the show and I hate the show. Some reasons why I hate the show, I was talking about this the other day with my wife. They don't fulfill the true premise of the show because the people that come on the show are, for the most part, above average. So no matter who you end up with, you're ending up with somebody who's above the norm anyway. And I know some people watching might say, oh, well, some of the dudes are a little bit like average and maybe some of the girls are a little bit this and that. And I'm going to get to like what this and that means and my thoughts on like how they pick the cast in a minute. But for the most part, I think we can all agree that if you really sit there and like dissect the casts for each season as a whole, like based on like socioeconomic status or potential socioeconomic status, attractiveness, height, things like that, more often than not, most of the castmates are above average. They're just above average people. Maybe slightly above average in some cases, but for the most part, everyone's above average outside of like the random weirdos they get that I've heard of who completely lie about who they are. So that's kind of my initial gripe. The show itself, the whole premise is love blind. It's a flawed concept by default because we all know that love is not blind. We know that attractiveness is necessary, and the show knows that it's necessary because they only get relatively attractive people. They don't get ugly people. If they really wanted to do the experiment like for real, they would get actual people who are just average people. Like people who have like normal jobs where they make like 30 to 50K a year. People who have normal jobs where they don't get to work from home. People who have normal body types. And when I say normal, I'm talking about normal based on the averages, not normal based on like what's technically healthy. But like in America, most people are overweight and obese. Get overweight and obese people. Most people aren't that good looking. Get people who just aren't that good looking. Don't get people who have social media like followings. And I understand that in reality, this would be way easier said than done. Like for the sake of a TV show to work, I understand, like I said, I mentioned this at the beginning. I understand that you're trying to entertain people, and I understand that there's a certain baseline, I would say, look that you need to go for in order for your audience back home to even be entertained or for people to even like watch the show. I've heard people complain and say, oh, well, they need more normal people in next season. It's like, would that fulfill the premise? Sure. Would you watch? No. I know you're at home saying you would watch. You wouldn't watch because we watch reality TV to see attractive people get into dramatic situations that we want to view for our entertainment. That's what reality TV is. It's like Temptation Island. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent. But Temptation Island, me and my wife were watching a couple weeks ago. And I personally like to go on like Reddit after I watch a season, or go on like YouTube and watch other people's content. And there was one season of Temptation Island, I think season 3 or 4, where some people were saying that the contestants and like the people who were made to get the contestants to cheat weren't attractive enough. So the show wasn't appealing because none of the people on the show were attractive. And they were like, oh, we're only watching to see attractive people get into these shenanigans. We're not interested in seeing average people get into these shenanigans. So it's like, you know, people want to watch attractive people on TV. It's why whenever you watch a movie, all the casts of all these movies are attractive, or relatively attractive. Unless it's like someone, no offense to Jonah Hill, but like a Jonah Hill character whose role is to be the overweight funny man. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's kind of my initial gripe with Love is Blind. The casting and the premise is a bit flawed. I get it, it's for TV, but for the sake of a premise, the show contradicts its own premise. Now I'm going to say my next gripe might be a bit of a hot take, and depending on how many views this video gets, which is probably not many because my channel does not seem to want to get blessed by the YouTube gods, so I'll probably get like 1 view on this entire video. But my next gripe, or I guess my next spicy hot take with Love is Blind as a whole, I tend to believe that it favors more female preference than male preference. And that, you know, as I'm thinking about it, it's not really true. It's just a weird assortment, I'll say, of cast mates. Like, it's a weird assortment of people to be on a reality TV show about dating. And I would love to know the psychology behind it. And what I mean by this is that when I look at the demographics of the people on the show, you'll notice, and I've been looking for this, at least the people who make it to like the beach and who actually get married in the pods and all that stuff. It's usually an older woman who is more developed in her career with a younger dude. Like, I always look at the ages and I look at the careers. Most of the dudes on the show are relatively young and probably at a point where they're just getting into their career. So it's usually guys who are like 25, 26, 27, maybe 29, but it's usually like that 25 to 28 range. Of course, I've seen a few guys who are like in their 30s, but I would say probably 80% of the guys on the show, at least based on the ones they show, are in their mid-20s. And what I tend to find is that most of the women on the show tend to be in their like early to mid 30s. Some obviously are in their 20s. Most are in their like early to mid 30s, and they're further along in their careers. Now, on the surface, that's not a bad thing. But the reason why I find it interesting is because I feel like it defies kind of like conventional dating dynamics. And I want to say that to a degree, it leans more favorably for women. I'm not sure if that's intentional, and I kind of think that in a way, a lot of the relationships are kind of doomed from the beginning for these reasons. Now, if that sounds confusing, let me kind of break down more of what I mean. I tend to find that a lot of dudes want to date younger women. I'm not getting into the reasons why, but I think if you're watching this at home, whether you're a guy or a girl, you know this to be true. The reasons why are irrelevant. The facts are just the facts. So the guys come on the show, and most of the girls are a bit older than they are, which is already probably a bit of a negative for a guy. Like, you're already coming into this, you're trying to get married to somebody, and the person you're getting married to is already older than you, which is probably not your ideal. You probably want someone who's at least the same age as you. The women on the show also probably make more money because they're in a career longer because they're older. And I typically tend to find, again, conventionally, I'm not saying this is true for every couple, but this tends to be the case. A lot of times I tend to find that women want to make less money than their male counterpart. I'm not saying that they want to make less money, period. I'm just saying that if a woman makes, say, for example, $80,000, she tends to want a guy that makes like $85,000, $90,000, $100,000. So you're already kind of, I think the show's probably doing this intentionally for the sake of drama. You're already starting off in a position where there's already two things that'll keep basically every couple from getting to the finish line, from getting married and staying an actual couple. You have the age discrepancy, and you have the most likely income discrepancy. Then you have like what's a good way to put it? The attractiveness factor, I'll call it that. And I'm probably going to get a little bit of hate for this. I'm just being brutally honest. I tend to find that a lot of the dudes overall are better off in the attractiveness category than the women. Again, it's not something that's ideal for the males on the show. So what do I mean by this? A lot of the women that are on the show, because they're older, they're not really probably falling under the dude's typical preference when it comes to appearance. A lot of the women, I'm going to be honest, they can be a bit overweight on the show. I'm not being mean, I'm just being honest. It's just true. And I think people get mad about that, but the reality is that I think many dudes will agree on this, and I think a lot of women know this to be true themselves. I don't know why we beat around the bush and pretend like this is not a thing. I think a lot of people understand that men typically like women who are thinner or in better shape. Much in the same way, I think we can all agree that women like men who are typically taller. Now, a lot of the men that come on the show look to be pretty tall in general. I'm not saying that they're all like 6'7" or 6'5", but in general, they look like they're at least like 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet tall. So the men are kind of selected to fit the women's preferences, but I don't think a lot of the women are selected to fit the men's preferences, which again, I think that also ties into why I think a lot of these relationships don't work out very well. I think it's just a mismatch, sort of a lack of alignment when it comes to what men typically want in a long-term relationship, especially a marriage, and especially a marriage that you're going to have in like a month or two after meeting somebody, compared to what women want. Now, I know some people might say, well, the women also are at a disadvantage because the men typically don't make as much money, and the men typically, that's really about it. The men just don't make as much money. The men are for the most part, pretty good looking, relatively good looking at least. They're relatively tall. Money is one of those things I think it shouldn't be a complete deal breaker, because you can always increase the amount of money you make, or you can decrease the amount of money you make. So, what else? As far as age, that could be a deal breaker for a lot of women. I do not, my guess is that Netflix or whoever the producers of the show are, they intentionally pick these types of people, like these mismatched men and women, because that increases the chances that drama occurs, and that increases the chances that more stuff happens on camera for our entertainment. That's my guess. Because if you really wanted to see if Love is Blind, and if you really wanted to make sure that the couples actually got married, you would just pick people who pretty much fit those default like preferences. Like, you pick only men who are relatively tall and good looking, who have a decent career, so they're probably older as well. And you probably pick women who probably careers are more or less irrelevant for men in the grand scheme of things, at least from what I found and from what I've talked to dudes about and from what I've seen on the internet. It seems to be a pretty consistent thing. If you found girls who are younger, in better shape, and didn't focus on their career as much, or who were young, of course, so they're not like super into their career, I think more marriages would occur that way. I'm not saying they would be successful marriages, but you'd get more people who actually get married, who get to the altar and say yes. So that's my 2 cents on the general idea of Love is Blind. Now, when it comes to the cast itself, let's get into that stuff. I think what I'll do is I'll go couple by couple. Like I said, I pulled up a list of their names because I forgot about them. And I'm just going to give my 2 cents on like the couples. I don't want to make the video too long, but knowing me, I'll probably ramble on. So first ones that are on my list, Ali and Anton. They were an interesting couple. I'll be honest, initially when they got married, I said both of them were pretty boring. They just seemed in general pretty bland. They kind of spiced things up when the drama kind of kicked off with Anton going to like strip clubs and Ali being like a trophy wife essentially. Yeah, there's not too much to say about them. They're just kind of boring in the grand scheme of things. I did not see them getting married. Ali just seems like the kind of girl she wants, to be honest, and this is no shade to her. I think she would just do a lot better finding a dude who's like in his late 30s, early 40s maybe, marrying him. Like a dude who has money, who's developed in his career, who of course would not mind her just doing nothing. That's essentially what she wants. She told Anton, she said that she wants to kind of stay at home and not cook, not clean, not do laundry, which is fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. If you want to do that, then you can certainly do that. But obviously, concessions need to be made. Some compromise needs to be made in some areas. So it is what it is. Yeah, I definitely think she'd be better to find an older guy that can suit those needs for her. I want to say this real quick, and this is going to be true of all the couples. This is true of all people in general. A lot of times when I see people talk about relationships, people have like what's a good way to put it? They have super unrealistic expectations about what they want in a relationship and how a relationship should unfold. And what I mean by that is you'll have someone like Allie who will say, yeah, I want a husband who makes like, let's say, she didn't say this, but let's just assume 6 figures, probably good looking, probably makes, probably has a good career. When I say good career, my belief is that sometimes the money isn't really what matters for some women. Sometimes the title matters more because it demonstrates status. So a truck driver, even if he made like $110,000, puts him well above everyone else in the country. But because it's a truck driver, the perception of that title sounds low value. Or if he was like a garbage man, he could be making tons of money, but the perception of that title makes you sound low value. And I think some women wouldn't like that. So in this hypothetical, I think if she found a guy who was like older, had a good career like lawyer, doctor, something like that, something that sounded like cool and desirable for a lot of people, entrepreneur, it's a big one, relatively tall, relatively in shape, all that good stuff, and he was willing to let her not cook, not clean, etc. On paper, that sounds fantastic. But I always say in all relationships, there's always a trade-off. There's always a trade-off. It is almost impossible. I'm pretty sure, I'm saying almost impossible because I feel like in real life, there's nothing that's truly impossible. But I will say there's like a 0.0000001% chance that you'll ever find a guy who will check off all those boxes and request nothing of you in exchange. And so what I mean by that is if you're Allie and you want a guy like that, I would say for the most part, expect that guy to certainly want you to look attractive 100% of the time. There's no negotiating this. Makeup all the time, in shape all the time, probably plastic surgery all the time, which she might be okay with, which is cool. Probably not in a position where you get to object to anything he wants to do. You're probably not in a position where you get to have opinions on what he wants to do. In the truest sense, if you want to be the kind of girl who doesn't want to cook, doesn't want to clean, doesn't want to contribute, and wants a guy who makes a certain amount of money, certain title, all that stuff, I think the reality is that you have no say in the relationship. You're truly, in the true sense of the word, a trophy wife. You're meant to just be looked at and not say anything else. That's really it. To provide status to him, and that's it. And I'm sure for some girls that's fine. I think for Allie, based on what I'm seeing in the show, and again, I don't know her, so I don't know if that's just good editing to make her look a certain way. That's probably the best bet for her if she really wants that kind of lifestyle. But I think in the grand scheme of things, if she tried that lifestyle out, she probably wouldn't want it that much. I can't imagine too many girls find that an appealing lifestyle. When it comes to Anton, his drinking, initially when she brought up his drinking, I didn't see it as that much of a big deal. I figured, if you're a truck driver, it's probably a stressful job. It's probably a very boring job. You probably don't get to spend much time with your friends and family because you're doing like these overnight shifts. He said he worked at night and got back in the mornings. And I don't know the details of his job, but it just seems unpleasant and uncomfortable. So I can imagine like you get home, no one's awake, like none of your friends are awake, or if they are awake, they're at work. There's nothing to do. You don't get to go to the bars often, so you're like, you know what? I'll chill at home, watch a movie, crack open 2 beers, go to sleep, and prepare for like my late night shift. I think that's kind of fine. He does seem like he drinks more than probably normal, which does to me, it does seem like a pretty bad long-term trait to have, someone who drinks too frequently. Is it something that's fixable? Sure. I think if they had more time, it'd be interesting to see him get put to the test of going like a week or 2 without drinking and just seeing like how that affects anything. Like, would he be more irritable? Would he be more stressed? Would he be just normal? Does he not need to drink? Is it something that he just likes to do? I know, like me personally, I don't mind drinking when I'm watching like a movie or watching like a funny YouTube show, just because I feel like alcohol for me enhances the experience. He could be the same way. So I don't know. I didn't see it as that much of a big deal. I knew pretty early on they weren't going to stay together. They just didn't seem like a good match, to be honest. But yeah, so moving on from them. Calibria and Edmund, they were an interesting couple. I don't have too much negative to say about them as individuals. They both seem pretty cool as individuals. As a couple, like initially, I thought to myself, there's no way they're getting married for a bunch of reasons. I'm going to say some of the main things. Edmund's a bit immature. Would I hang out with him? Yeah, he seems cool. Like, he seems funny. Seems like he's an interesting guy to be around. For a relationship, I can't imagine. I can't imagine, just based on Calibria, the way she seems, that'd be a good match. She seems very like low key, very like grounded, but also very like not introverted, but not like, she doesn't seem like she allows herself to get super excited, or at least like she doesn't show it. Even like her tonality when they're talking. Edmund's like super fast talking, super like high pitched, super up and down in his like emotional range, like 24/7. He's all over the place. And Calibria's kind of just like, even like the way she has her eyes, she's like, yeah, she's like chill. She just talks kind of slow. You know, she's cool, but like she's not really super extreme. And people say opposites attract. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I believe in that. I think you have to have things in common with people to like them. I think you can have aspects of people that are opposites or that are slightly different. And I think those things can be fine. But if you just took two people who are completely different, I don't think they'd do well together. It's like taking someone who's an athlete versus someone who's lazy. It probably wouldn't work out. They're too opposite for that to work out typically. Or taking someone who is super extroverted and pairing them with someone who's super introverted. And I'm talking about like truly extroverted versus introverted. Some people say extroverted, introverted, and they'll say like, oh yeah, I'm super extroverted and my partner's introverted, which isn't true when you look at them. Sometimes it's just that they're introverted and extroverted in different ways. But maybe they're both pretty extroverted in certain situations or both pretty introverted in other situations. I think I'm talking about someone who's like genuinely like extroverted, like they need to be around people 24/7 versus someone who's like super introverted where like even being around anybody at all, friends, family, whatever, like makes them uncomfortable and like drains their energy. I think something like that wouldn't work out very well as a couple. That'd be like, to me, true opposites in a relationship sense. They seem like opposites. I didn't think they would work out. I remember telling my wife the entire time, I was like, man, when she says no at the altar, I'm going to feel so bad for him because he just seems like an emotional bomb. Not a bad way. His emotions are just all over the place. He's very expressive. And I was like, I don't see her. I just couldn't see her saying yes to him. I'll say this. When she did break up with him, spoilers if you didn't watch the final episode, when she did say no to him at the altar, I thought she handled it very well. When Ali and Anton were at the altar, the way Ali broke up with him, I think, was not well worded. And to be honest, I don't like when people get to the altar and word their breakup in such a like shameful way. Shameful in the sense that they're blaming the partner for the reasons why they're not getting married. I think if you just don't like somebody, you don't need to state the reasons why in front of all those people on TV. I think you can just say, I didn't think it was going to work out. I tried to wait till the last minute. I apologize that we made it this far. You are awesome, but you know, we can still be friends. I have love for you, but I don't love you. You know, you can say things like that. Like, you can still compliment somebody and you can gracefully express that you don't want to be with them. But the idea of getting to like the altar and saying, you know what, you didn't take care of my needs. I don't think we were a good fit because you did this, and that. That's unnecessary. I think it's a bit childish. I think it's immature. Ali kind of did it. I don't remember exactly what she said, but I remember she kind of blamed Anton for them not being together. Not like super directly, but she kind of like still essentially blamed him. I don't think it's necessary. Calibria, I think, handled it very well, where she was just like, you know what? I was debating it, and I was thinking about it. It didn't work out. It's not at you. It's just the timing. We didn't have enough time to really get to, experience this. I think that's fine. That's totally okay. And I think even though Edmund was hurt, him hearing those words made him feel good about it. He didn't blow up nearly as much as I thought he would, to be honest. So that was cool. What else? I want to say one thing. Probably, again, another spicy take. There was one scene that went like super viral, and when I first saw the scene, I laughed at it. I thought it was funny. It was a scene where they're talking about her sleeping with other guys, and he was upset because he couldn't hook up with her before marriage. And I saw really no one defending Edmund on this one. So I'm going to defend him on this one because I understood where he came from, to be honest. I think for a lot of people, especially women I saw online, they were focused on the part of him being upset about not getting sex. And I don't think that was the issue. I think, and again, in the comments, let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know what your interpretation of this is, especially if you're a dude, because I want to know if other dudes agree with this. I don't think he was upset about her not sleeping with him. I think the real issue was that she's let other guys sleep with her and not care. And then when he's trying to sleep with her and he's trying to be her husband, suddenly it's an issue. Does that make sense? The way I see it, because I always think that men and women are very similar, but the ways in which we're similar might differentiate slightly. I think it'd be the equivalent of, imagine if you're a girl watching this, imagine if you had a boyfriend and your boyfriend never took you out on dates, never did nice things for you, and never spent money on you. And his reasoning was, I used to do that in the past, but now I'm changed, and I only want to do that with somebody that I'm married to who I take seriously. Now imagine you heard that in the past, he paid for every girl's drinks, dinners, vacations, luxurious dates. Imagine he spent lots of money on a lot of different women in the past before he met you, and then suddenly once he met you and suddenly once you guys were dating, he decided that he wanted to cut all that off until you guys got married. I think a lot of women would have an issue with that. That's the equivalent. It's not the sex, it's the attitude towards the activity that I think is the part that's upsetting. And by the way, if you're a girl watching this, if a guy said that, I would understand the frustration. I would agree. I'd be like, yeah, you're going to be a dude who paid for girls all this time that you didn't care about. Then when you meet a girl you do care about, suddenly you're trying to withhold your willingness to invest in her, so to speak. It'd be a bit weird. And I don't think it'd be good for a long-term relationship. I do think that initially before marriage, it's good to show some investment and show that the person you're about to get married to matters far more to you than everyone else that came prior. Do I think she needs to have sex with him? No. The sex, again, is not the point. The point is that if everyone, I can see from Edmund's perspective, if everyone around him is having sex with their girlfriend, whatever, and you're the only one that's not, and then her reasoning is because, yeah, I used to sleep around before I knew you, and those guys didn't matter. They were one-night stands. But with you, the guy who's been investing in me, and the guy who probably cares a lot about me, and the guy who wants to get married to me, with you, you're going to have to wait because I don't want to risk anything bad happening. I get her perspective too. I saw an interview with her perspective, and I agree with her perspective. I'm not disagreeing with what she said, and I'm not disagreeing with her mindset on it. But I'm just stating that people were roasting Edmund because he freaked out. The freak out was bad. He shouldn't have freaked out that much. But I get where he was coming from in the grand scheme of things. So that's my 2 cents on that issue that took place. What else? Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think they were a good couple. She got mad at him for too much. Did they cut stuff out? Probably. Is there some stuff he probably said or did that gave her a reason to be so upset? Probably. I'm sure there was. And they probably cut it out to make her look like the bad person. Or not, I don't know. But the constant fighting, I think within the 2 weeks before they're getting married, it's too much. It's just not a good sign. I'm glad they didn't get married. So, that's them. Next two. Alright, so, next two. We got Megan and Jordan. Sparkle, Megan, and Jordan. Now, I don't have... Part of me wants to say I don't have much to say, but I know I'm going to have a lot to say. Megan and Jordan were interesting because I saw a lot of people hating on Jordan and not enough people hating on Megan. Not that anyone should hate on Megan. She actually was pretty cool too in the grand scheme of things. The way she talks, I'll be honest, she comes off as someone who will have a hard time. And I'm shooting this before the reunion. I've heard that she might be pregnant on the reunion. I don't know if it's true, to be honest. I feel like sometimes they hype stuff up. They know how to market very well. And they know that if they tell people she could be pregnant, that could just be a good way to like market the reunion to get a lot of viewers. In reality, chances are she could have just been like with some random dude that's not her boyfriend. The baby could have just been some random baby, like a niece, nephew, something like that. Who knows? I think she'll struggle though. My 2 cents is she'll struggle to find a partner if her mindset stays consistent with what it was in the show. So if her mindset is, oh, I need to go on vacations a lot, if I need to wake up at like 9 and go play tennis, I don't think you're gonna have a good relationship. My reasons for this is, one, in my personal experience, a lot of dudes who are entrepreneurs are so invested in their work, they don't have time to play tennis at 9 a.m. Like, I remember telling my wife this. The only dudes I think that'd be a good fit for her, based on like what little we've learned about her and what she seems like she wants, is probably like a 50, 60, or 70-year-old dude who's like already retired or who's pretty much on his way to retirement, who has lots of money, who values maybe a girl in their 30s or 40s, and who just has time. I really think that's it. Like some dude who's like trying to live out the last couple decades of his life just having fun. I think that'd be perfect for her. I think everyone else is off the table. Some people might, if you're watching this, you might think to yourself, what about some other rich person? I've met some dudes who are rich. I know of plenty of dudes who are rich. I know of plenty of entrepreneurs. It's not an issue of money. It's an issue of time. She seems like she has lots of time. She has money, it seems, too, but she also has time. And a lot of dudes who are like really working, who are really hustling, who are really starting businesses, who are really like on that grind, they don't have time. And if they do have time, they don't want to spend their time just doing that stuff. That's the issue. Now, I'm going to say this too. Hearing about Megan, she catches me as some kind of girl who was born into money. I'm not trying to like put her down. Just when I see some people who like, how do I put it? There's some people I've come in contact with. If you're watching this, I live in Loudoun County. It's the wealthiest county in all of America. I've met people who have money, but then when you kind of like dig into their background and learn more about their background, you're like, oh, you got money from your dad or your parents. And you having money and connections from your dad and parents made your life a bit easier than the average person. Like you're trying to start a business. A lot of people need clients. A lot of people need leads. They need connections. Most people, to get those connections, have to build them from the ground up. Like go out, meet brand new people, be embarrassed, have no one care who they are because there's nothing that you on paper can offer them. If you're from a wealthy family, these things don't exist. You already have something to offer. Even if you don't have something to offer yourself, your dad does, or your mom does, or your brothers or sisters do. So it's not quite the same struggle. I'm not putting her down. I'm not saying this is how she lives. I just got that vibe from when she was talking. I typically find that if you see someone who's like super rich, super early, usually it's one of three things, in my experience. At least that's what comes to mind. One, they've been doing it for a very long time. Like I've seen dudes who are like in their 30s and like rich, but they've been doing it since they were like 10. But their mindset towards like money and time is very different. Because at this point it's like a habit. It's like an Alex Hormozy type person who is young and is wealthy, but they've been doing it for so long, it's just part of their identity to work. So the idea of someone saying to that person, hey, stop working so you can play tennis or so you can like go on vacation, even if they had the money, and even if they technically had the time, they'd say, fuck you, I don't want to do that because that's not my identity. I like to work. That's who I am. I'm the guy that works. That's what made me this money. So that kind of person wouldn't be on the table for her. Second type of person is usually the kind of person who is a scammer. Scammer in the sense that they are overstating how much money they have. So they're just kind of like lying. Or scammer in the sense that they really just scammed other people to get wealthy. Think of like a Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort type person. No shame to Jordan Belfort, but there's dudes like that too who are young and are wealthy, but the way they got their wealth was probably illegal or extremely immoral or unethical, they might have money and time. Now, that's a little bit of a different thing, but if you want to date a scammer with money and time, that's perfectly fine, I guess. But, you know, that's a whole different can of worms right there. And then you have the third type of person who's born into it, who just kind of inherited it or was in a situation where their family was wealthy from the start, like a Donald Trump. And even if they think that their hard work leads to success, which it could be, they could still be working hard. I'm not saying they're not working hard. They underplay the fact that other people are in such a different boat than them, that hard work for the person who kind of inherited their wealth is like this, and then hard work for everyone else to get like a fraction of what this person will ever get here. Like, this person's working exponentially harder to get this much. This person's working like this hard to get this much, just because like the way they've started is completely different. It's like if you're Donald Trump, I have a billionaire real estate empire. How'd you get it? I took a small loan of $1 million from my father. Well, a lot of people don't have a father who can give them a small loan of $1 million. A lot of people don't have parents that know about real estate to that extent where they can just hop into it, learn from their parents, and get super wealthy. You know, there's other underlying factors, not to get into like money talks, but I didn't think it would work out, mainly because they just come from two different dynamic backgrounds. Jordan seems super humble, and Megan, I'm not saying she's not humble. I just feel like she's in her own world. She's in like the wealthy people world. Jordan's in the normal person world. And I think those two worlds, it's hard to mix. Values are different. Jordan, I remember at one point was like, yeah, you know, I'm happy with my Kia. Happy with my Kia. I'm happy to like take care of my kid. I'm happy with my circumstances. I like my job. I like to come home. I like to relax. I do A, B, and C, and I'm happy about it. And he genuinely seemed content with where he's at. And I think that's fantastic. Megan's like, oh, but what about vacations? It's like, you don't get to do vacations like that when you have when you have kids. It just would be inconvenient. It'd be inconvenient and unpleasant. Like, it's just not probably fun. So regardless of money, unless you want like a nanny to take care of your kids 24/7, which I don't agree with. I don't think that's a good idea. That's just my 2 cents. You got to grow up and understand that being a mom means giving up things that are just fun. Maybe when the kids are teenagers, you can do it again, or when they're like older, fair enough. But when the kids are young, stay at home, relax, watch the kids, be a mom. That's my 2 cents. I think she was still kind of in her dating phase, which is fine. They didn't get married either. I think that's the best decision for them. So moving on, Madison and Joe. I'm probably going to get a little bit of hate for this. I like Joe. I think Joe is cool. Some things he said were funny in the sense where he comes off as like a frat bro that was just not thinking through what he said. Like, there was one scene where I think they were at like the cowboy party or something like that. And I think Ali was riding the bull, and Jordan and Nick made a comment about her riding the bull being hot, so they shouldn't be looking as long as they were. As a comment in itself, I don't think it's that bad. Two dudes joking around. It is what it is. I don't think it's that big of a deal. For any girl watching, I think some girls might get mad about that. I've heard girls say way worse about dudes while the girls were in relationships, while the girls were married. I don't think what they said was that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. I think the comedy was that they were on TV saying it, and I think they forgot they were mic'd up. That's the funny part about it. But yeah, Joe just kind of gets me as like some dude who likes to just chill, likes to have fun, be with the boys, be like a frat guy. See no harm in it. Spoiler, they didn't get married either. He broke up with her pretty early before the wedding. I see no issue with it. He got hate for it online. I personally think he made the best decision. He knew long before getting to the altar that this was not going to work. From the beginning, I remember I was laughing with my wife about this. Just based on the way he was kind of acting around her, I was like, she's not hot to him. Brutally honest, he doesn't find her attractive. He doesn't think she's hot. And he's not going to invest that much if she's not that hot. It sounds mean, but it's brutally honest. I think people just try to disregard these aspects about relationships. He, in the pod, liked her personality. He probably had an idea of what she looked like. And then in real life, when he saw what she looked like, it was different than what he perceived or what he expected. So then the illusion got shattered, and then the I guess the pleasure or the interesting dynamic was now over. It is what it is. Did he try? Yeah, he tried. He tried to make it work. I think that was good on him for giving it a shot. I think as the marriage approached, he kind of got scared, with good reason, in my personal opinion. I don't think she helped. I think her personality was a bit abrasive. I think she kind of got in arguments too much. I think she was a bit pushy. I don't think she's a bad person. I just think that sometimes in these shows, I often wonder, do people go back and watch themselves on the show and use this experience as like a learning experience? A learning experience in the sense that they watch it and they say, oh, when I get upset, I immediately lash out on the person instead of asking like a question to understand their perspective. Does that make sense? Like there was one scene where I think where he was drunk and he went back home and she started freaking out about him like reacting to her weird. And I thought he was on drugs. But I was like, the reaction in itself, it's not a good reaction. I'm just picturing like if I were a girl, I go home, I say to my boyfriend, are you okay? And he wakes up like all shook. I would probably ask, what's wrong? But I would ask it in a calm tone. I wouldn't freak out. I wouldn't cry because those things don't like, I've said this before. Sometimes I like people in relationships. I think men and women should like it should be mandatory to take a class where both parties learn about the opposite sex in like a very brutally objective, like true sense. Like women need to learn how men perceive things, how men react to certain things, what men think. Men should learn the same about women, how women react to things, how women perceive things, how women think. I think if both parties did that with an open mind, with no judgment, and actually tried to learn and internalize those things so that way they can use what they've learned in their own personal lives, I think most relationships would be much better off. So I think her coming in there being a little bit too upset was jarring. And I remember him laughing at some scenes about like her reaction. I think he was just nervous, which I think is a fair response. To kind of like laugh out of nervousness. Just like, I'm laughing not because I think it's funny. I think at one point he actually did say too, it's not funny. I don't know why I'm laughing. I think he was just nervous and couldn't like articulate that I'm nervous because your reaction is so high relative to what I believe it should be. And this like division between where it should be versus where it's at is making me uncomfortable, which is why I'm laughing because I'm just nervous. Yeah, for the most part, I don't think what he did was that bad. I do think she can control her. She should learn how to control her reaction to things and just calmly ask questions to get to the bottom of things. Yeah, hopefully, she watches this back and she does that. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think Nick's decision to leave early was bad. I think that this might sound mean. For some of the girls on the show, there's this thing that's been popping up. It's been like a viral thing where people will point out how a lot of the girls, when they go on the show, they might be overweight or not in great shape. And then once they get off the show, they go on Ozempic. That's like the running joke. They go on Ozempic and they lose lots of weight and they style themselves up a lot better. Do I think they go on Ozempic? Maybe. They do lose weight very quickly, especially for people who don't seem like they're used to losing weight rapidly in like a natural sense. Like if you're someone who bodybuilds and you know how to lose weight and gain weight, it's a bit different. Most people don't know how to do that. So it's probably drugs. My thought process, to be honest, is always, it's a little bit sad that they wait until after the show to look better. I mentioned this earlier. Again, super hot take. I'll probably get some hate for saying this. Men like women who look pretty and who are in shape. If you're going to go on a reality TV show to look pretty and be in shape, like if you're going to go on a reality TV show to get married, would it not be in your best interest to look as pretty and as in shape as you possibly could be prior to the show? But the show's Love is Blind. It's supposed to be about judging people not for what they look like. It doesn't matter. For the sake of your relationship, you should want to look as good as you can regardless. The same applies for men, by the way. If you're a dude who goes on Love is Blind and you're fat or you're overweight or you're sloppy, don't. Get in shape, look good, wear nice clothes before you go on the show and while you're on the show. love is blind. It's not about what I look like. Let's be real. If two people met up in the pods and after the pods, they were both like if one partner was super sloppy, say for example, the dude, it was like super sloppy and super short, the girl wouldn't go for it. She wouldn't be about it. She'd break up with him. And we're going to get to that in just a second. I think that's fine. That's how people are in real life. That's natural. We know this to be true. So why not just put action towards improving ourselves for the sake of the show? You know he's going to want to know what you look like eventually. You know that the entire marriage is not going to be you guys behind the pods. Look good prior. Had she done that, I think there would have been a better chance that the marriage would have worked out. I still think her personality needed a bit fixing. What's her name? Annie? Or no. I think I mixed up a lot of the names actually. My bad. Madison. That was her name. I messed up the names earlier. I think I said Annie and Nick. I meant Madison and Joe. Had Madison had a better, I guess, outlook on things and her personality been a little bit better, I think that combined with if she lost weight a bit earlier and was in better shape, I think he would have gone through with it. I think he would have probably got married. Maybe not, because he had some reservations about marriage anyway. He mentioned from his prior marriage, which he said lasted like a couple years or something. But I think there was a better odds. I think there were better odds had she been in better shape and had her personality been worked on prior. Hopefully that makes sense. So moving on, Annie and Nick. Annie and Nick, I don't really have that much to say, to be honest. Annie was strange. She was a bit much. Nick, people kept calling Nick gay. I can see it. It took the first couple times I heard it, I didn't really see it. Then like after a while, people pointed out stuff. I can see it. Doesn't matter. No, doesn't really make a big deal. Annie, her reaction to things is baffling to me. She comes off as the kind of girl who got rejected in the past, and she tries to play like the reverse psychology game, where if she says, I remember this one scene in particular where I felt this, where I think Nick was saying, is his name Nick? Yeah. Nick was saying like, I like you, I want to be with you, I'm just not 100% in yet, which to me is normal. I think any person who's 100% in a relationship for marriage too quickly, I think that's a bit of a red flag. I think they're being dishonest with themselves. Or if they're not being dishonest with themselves, they should really reconsider how they view relationships. Because I feel like you can't be 100% in, especially when you first meet somebody, because you just don't know enough about them to know that this decision you're about to make, which is a lifelong decision, is the best decision. Apply that same logic to anything else. Imagine you go to college and someone says, okay, freshman year, day 7, pick your major. Whatever major you pick, you cannot switch it. You must stick with that career for your entire life. Most people would say, I need more time. I need more time to take classes. I need more time to think about what my career is going to be. I need more time to think about the long-term path of this career. I don't really know where this career is going to take me. I don't know what the income is going to be. There's a lot of things to consider. So if you're someone who jumps into something, anything, and you say you have no reservations and you're 100% committed, to me, that's a bit of a red flag. It means you probably haven't thought it through very much, which means that down the line in the relationship, or in any decision, but in this instance, the relationship probably won't last because something you didn't think of before will come up and you'll get upset about it and then you'll want out. And that's not good for anybody. So yeah, him saying that he wasn't 100% committed because he needed to think about certain things, but he was willing to work on them, I think was a fantastic sign. I think that was the best answer you could give. I think her trying to almost like blackmail him or reverse psychology him was bad. I don't remember verbatim what she said, but there was one line, something along the lines of, I don't need you, but I want you. And I can understand what she meant by that. But to say to somebody, I don't need you, but I want you, it sounds like you're not that special. That's how I think a lot of people interpret that sentence. You're not very special to me. I want you because you're here and because you make me feel A, B, and C, but you're not that special. I can replace you. That's how other people will interpret that sentence. I don't think that's what she meant, but the interpretation is what matters. That's part of communication, is saying things in a way to relay the way you interpret something to be interpreted to someone else. Hopefully that makes sense. She didn't do a good job at that. Again, I think she's probably been in situations where she's been rejected for whatever reason. and she tries to reverse psychology her way out of it. If I pretend like I don't care about rejection, then they're not going to reject me. It's not a good strategy, in my personal opinion, because people like Nick, I forgot his name, will call your bluff, and he did, and he's like, hey, I'm out, I'm done. And then she tried to like negotiate that too, like almost deny his denial. She pulled like the One Piece, like, I refuse your refusal. He was like, no, you don't, I'm out, bye. But yeah, that was my very long review of Love is Blind. As I'm recording this, the reunion is not out. It's a Monday. The reunion comes out on Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to seeing how things have changed, when it's different. But yeah, let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what your insights or comments are down below. And hope to see you in the next video. Peace out. Bye.